She forged my signature and stole over $250, $0 in our divorce, then blackmailed me with threats of destroying my reputation, only for a hidden will to reveal she's been planning her escape with everything. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am. It all started with small things, little clues that didn't make sense at first. My name's Mark and I was married to Lisa for about 8 years. We had what most people would call a decent life. Middle class, steady jobs, 2 kids, and a house in the suburbs. I always thought we were solid. I knew Lisa could be bitchy and manipulative at times, but I never imagined she'd go this far. Things started to feel off about 6 months ago. She became more distant, secretive. She'd leave her phone around, but I'd catch her quickly hiding it or deleting messages. She'd make excuses. She was busy at work, stressed out, or just tired. I bought it at first. Women get stressed. But then I noticed her phone bill spiked with texts to some guy named Jake. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe just a coworker, right? But I started noticing strange behaviors. She'd leave the house suddenly, claiming she had to run errands, only to come back late at night smelling like perfume I didn't recognize. One night I came home early from work. I usually work late, but I was in a weird mood and I decided to surprise her. I parked down the street and saw her car parked outside a strange apartment building I'd never seen her go to before. My stomach clenched. I parked further away, crept closer, and peeked inside through the window. That's when I saw her, Lisa, in bed with some guy, kissing him like she was starving for it. They weren't just fooling around, they were having sex. I saw her moan his name and I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I didn't make a scene that night. I just watched from the shadows, heart pounding, rage boiling. I couldn't believe she'd cheat on me, especially with someone like Jake, an arrogant, sleazy guy from her office. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. How long had this been going on? Was this the first time, or just the latest? I kept replaying everything in my mind, the late nights, the secret calls, the way she'd brush me off when I asked about her day. It was like a switch flipped and suddenly everything made sense. The next day I confronted her. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told her I knew about Jake, about the nights she was out, about the messages. Her face twisted into this bitchy sneer like she didn't care. She lied right to my face, said I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. She claimed she was stressed, that I was overreacting, that I was just jealous. But I was. I'd seen enough. The proof was there, hidden in her phone, in her behavior, in the way she looked at me with contempt. She denied everything, but I knew better. That moment hit me harder than anything else. The woman I trusted, the woman I loved, was sleeping around. Not just that, she was lying, cheating, and making me doubt myself. I felt a mix of anger, hurt, and a deep sense of loss. I'd always thought our marriage was solid, that we had a future. Turns out I was just fooling myself. She was planning her escape all along, and I was too blind to see it. That night I realized I had to do something. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I needed to find out the full story, how deep this went, what she was planning, and how I could turn this around. I didn't know it then, but this was just the beginning of a long, complicated road. After I saw her with that guy, everything else seemed to fall apart inside me. My mind was racing, trying to process how I didn't see it coming, how I missed the signs, or maybe I just refused to see them. I remember sitting in my car for what felt like hours, staring at her apartment, feeling numb. I didn't want to make a rash decision, but the anger was bubbling up fast. I needed answers, and I needed to figure out what the hell was really going on behind my back. That same night, I started digging. I went through her phone, her emails, anything I could get my hands on. I found texts, flirty, suggestive messages with Jake, but also some that suggested she was planning something. I found receipts for hotel rooms she booked in her name but never told me about. It was clear she was hiding a whole secret life. I also discovered she'd been forging my signature on some documents, transferring money from our joint account. Over $250, $0 gone. I couldn't believe it. How could she do this? How could she betray me like that? I started feeling sick to my stomach, not just angry but betrayed on a fundamental level. She'd been lying to me for months, maybe years. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her in bed with that guy, heard her lie to my face. It was like I was living in some nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I had proof, hard evidence that she wasn't just cheating, she was stealing from us, lying about everything. The next morning I decided I had enough. I called her at work, told her I needed to see her. When she arrived home, I was waiting for her with everything laid out, screenshots, bank statements, the forged signatures. Her face twisted in that same bitchy sneer. She tried to deny everything, but I cut her off. I told her I knew about the affair, the money, the lies, that I wasn't going to be played anymore. I asked her how long she'd been planning this, how many times she'd lied to my face. She started crying, but it was fake tears. Those crocodile tears she always used when she wanted to manipulate someone. She said she was stressed, that I didn't understand her, that she needed someone who paid attention to her. She claimed she'd only been with Jake for a few weeks, that it didn't mean anything. She was trying to spin it to make herself the victim, but I wasn't buying it. I'd seen her with my own eyes. This wasn't some fling, this was a full-blown betrayal. I was furious, but I kept my cool. I told her I knew about the forgery, about the money she stole. I told her I was going to take her to court over the stolen money, and I was going to make sure she paid for her lies. That's when she snapped. She said I was overreacting, that I was ruining everything, that I'd never find someone better than her. She said I was just jealous and insecure, but I knew better. I knew she was a liar and a cheat, and I was done being her fool. In that moment, I realized I couldn't fix this marriage. She crossed every line. The betrayal was too deep. I felt crushed, but also a strange sense of clarity. I knew I had to take control, protect what was left of my life, and figure out what to do next. I was hurt, yes, but I also knew I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to be smart, strategic. I started planning my next moves, consulting a lawyer, figuring out how to get the money back, and thinking about what kind of future I wanted for myself and my kids. I was angry, but I was also determined. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my life from someone who thought she could cheat her way out of everything. After that confrontation, everything changed. I felt like I was walking around in a fog, angry, betrayed, and trying to piece together just how deep the rabbit hole went. I couldn't believe she'd been planning this whole thing for so long, stealing from us, lying to my face, then turning around and crying fake tears when I finally confronted her. It was like I'd been blind, but now I saw clearly. Lisa wasn't the woman I thought I married. She was a liar, a thief, and a manipulator. And I was furious. I decided I had to act quickly. The first thing I did was hire a lawyer. I wanted to know exactly what I was dealing with legally. I also needed proof of everything, her forgery, the money she'd stolen, the affair. I started gathering everything I could find: bank statements, emails, texts, even her social media messages. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything, especially not after what she'd done. In the meantime, I kept a close eye on her. She was acting even more bitchy and entitled, throwing tantrums and trying to gaslight me into doubting what I saw. She'd call me paranoid, accuse me of cheating myself, say I was insecure. But I knew better. I knew she was the one cheating, stealing, and lying. I also found out she'd secretly opened credit cards in my name, racking up thousands without my knowledge. The more I dug, the worse it got. It was like peeling an onion. Each layer revealed more lies, more betrayal. One night I caught her on the phone with Jake again. I heard her laughing, talking about how she was going to escape with everything and leave me with nothing. That was the moment I decided I had to take control. I confronted her again, this time with all my evidence. She snapped, yelled at me, said I was ruining her life, that she deserved better, but I didn't care. She was the one who ruined everything. I told her I was going to take her to court, that I'd get everything back, including the money she stole and the house we bought together. The next few weeks were a roller coaster. She tried to manipulate the situation, acting like the victim, crying, begging, lying. She even tried to turn the kids against me, saying I was a terrible father and husband. But I stayed firm. I knew I had to protect my kids from her toxicity. I started documenting everything, her lies, her threats, her attempts to sabotage me. I also hired a private investigator to follow her around, just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Meanwhile, I discovered something even more shocking. She'd been secretly drafting a will, trying to hide her assets and plan her escape. It was hidden in a safe deposit box. When I found it, I saw she had plans to leave everything behind, including the house, our savings, and even the kids' trust funds. She was planning her getaway, and I was just a pawn in her game. That realization hit me hard. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was trying to leave me with nothing. She'd been planning her escape the entire time, and I was just too blind to see it. I started feeling a mixture of rage and despair. How could she do this? How could she betray me and our family like this? I felt like I'd been punched in the gut every day. But I also knew I had to be smart. I couldn't let her get away with it. I needed to protect what was mine and make sure she paid for her lies. So I kept gathering evidence, kept talking to my lawyer, and prepared for the legal battles ahead. I knew this wasn't going to end easily, but I was determined to come out on top. I had to. The legal process moved faster than I expected, probably because I had everything lined up: proof of her forgery, the stolen money, the secret affair, and her hidden will. It was like I was building a case against her, piece by piece. Every day I felt the weight of it all pressing down harder, but I knew I couldn't back down now. If I didn't fight for what was rightfully mine, she'd walk away with everything, and I'd be left with nothing but shattered trust and broken memories. I remember sitting across from my lawyer, feeling numb but also oddly determined. We filed for divorce, of course, but this wasn't just about splitting assets anymore. It was about justice. I wanted her to pay for what she'd done, especially the money she forged my signature to steal. I also wanted control over our assets, including the house, which she was trying to secretly transfer into her name. I had to stop her before she completely disappeared with everything. Meanwhile, she kept up her act of being the victim. She'd cry, yell, and manipulate the kids, trying to turn them against me. It was disgusting, really, but I had to stay focused. I started documenting every lie, every attempt she made to undermine me. I also hired a financial investigator to trace all her hidden accounts and assets. What I found was staggering. She'd been funneling money into offshore accounts, trying to hide her plans even further. One of the most shocking moments came when I got access to her emails. There, I found a series of messages between her and a lawyer in another state. She'd been drafting a new will, trying to make sure she left everything behind, including her assets and the house, in case she disappeared. She'd even been researching how to get a new identity, how to avoid taxes, and how to escape her responsibilities. The level of her planning was terrifying. I also discovered that she'd been blackmailing me with threats of destroying my reputation if I ever tried to fight her over the money or custody. She told me she had dirt on me, things she could use to ruin me professionally and socially. That's when I realized she'd been playing me from the start. It wasn't just about cheating or stealing. She was trying to destroy me completely so she could walk away free. The final blow came when the court ordered an emergency freeze on her accounts and the transfer of the house. I finally had a chance to stop her from running away with everything. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief that I was finally taking control, and anger that she'd gone this far. I told her she was done. Her plans were unraveling and she wasn't going anywhere with my life and my money. For the first time in months, I felt like I was starting to breathe again. But it wasn't over yet. She still had some tricks up her sleeve. I knew she wouldn't go quietly. I just had to stay sharp, keep fighting, and make sure she paid for what she'd done. The hardest part was knowing she was still out there, plotting her next move. I couldn't sleep some nights, wondering if she was planning to disappear for good or try to turn everything around again. But I had lawyers, investigators, and the truth on my side. I just had to hold on until the final judgment. The months that followed felt like a war of attrition. Every time I thought I had her cornered, Lisa would come back with some new lie or manipulative stunt. She'd try to spin the narrative, acting innocent and betrayed, like I was the bad guy for catching her cheating, stealing, and planning her escape. Honestly, it was exhausting. But I stayed the course, knowing that I was fighting for my life, my reputation, and what was left of my dignity. The court proceedings were brutal. She hired her own lawyers, and it turned into a drawn-out battle over assets, custody, and the money she'd stolen. I had to testify, bring in witnesses, and prove her criminal behavior. Every day in court, I felt the weight of her lies and deception. But I also felt a strange sense of empowerment, like I was finally taking control of a situation I'd been helpless in for too long. Meanwhile, I kept digging into her finances. I found more offshore accounts, more fake identities, and even evidence that she'd been trying to sell off parts of the house secretly. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deeply she'd planned her escape. She'd been trying to wipe out her assets to avoid paying restitution or giving me anything in the divorce. It was almost like she wanted to leave me with nothing, just like I'd suspected from the start. One of the most shocking revelations came when I discovered she'd forged my signature on a new will, one that disinherited our kids and left everything to her sister. I found it in a safe deposit box under a fake name. The plan was clear. She was trying to cut me out completely, make sure she could escape with everything. That's when I knew I had to act fast. I filed an emergency motion to invalidate that will and prevent her from transferring any more assets. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, angry, and sometimes hopeless. There were moments I wondered if I'd ever get my life back, if I'd ever be able to trust again. But I also realized that this experience, as painful as it was, had taught me something: how to spot a liar, how to stand up for myself, and how to fight for what's right. I had to be strong for my kids, for myself, and for the truth. In the end, the judge awarded me a significant portion of the stolen money, ordered her to pay restitution, and froze her assets. The house was awarded to me, and she was ordered to pay child support and alimony. It wasn't the perfect ending, but it was enough to start rebuilding. I felt a mixture of relief and bitterness. She didn't get away scot-free, but I knew she'd be paying for her lies and betrayal for a long time. Looking back, I realize how much I underestimated her. Lisa was a master manipulator, a liar, and a thief. But I also learned that even in the darkest moments, there's a way out. You just have to be willing to fight for it. Trust is fragile and betrayal runs deep. But if you keep your head clear, gather your evidence, and stand your ground, you can come out on the other side. I still have scars, but I'm starting to heal. And I hope anyone else going through something similar finds the strength to do the same. Now, looking back, I realize how close I came to losing everything. The betrayal was almost too much to bear, her lies, her theft, her manipulations. But I also learned something vital: the importance of standing up for yourself, no matter how deep the betrayal runs. I never thought I'd be the guy who'd get caught in a web of lies and deception, but here I am, stronger because of it. The aftermath isn't perfect, but it's better. I've moved out of the house, started over, and most importantly, I've regained my sense of control. The trust is gone, sure, but I've learned to watch for the red flags and listen to my gut. My kids are still adjusting, but I'm doing everything I can to give them stability and honesty. I've also learned that some people are just like Lisa, bitchy, manipulative, and willing to do whatever it takes to get what they want. One thing I want to say to anyone reading this: don't ignore the signs. If someone's hiding things, lying, stealing, pay attention. It might not be easy to confront, but it's necessary. And don't be afraid to fight for what's yours. I almost let her take everything, but I stood my ground. In the end, I got my life back, piece by piece. Most importantly, I've learned that betrayal doesn't define you. It hurts, it cuts deep, but it also teaches you resilience. I've become more cautious, more aware, and more determined to protect myself and my family. I don't regret standing up for myself, even if it meant going through hell for a while, because now I can finally breathe again. I can look in the mirror and know I did everything I could to fight for my future. So to anyone out there dealing with something similar, stay strong. Trust your instincts, gather your evidence, and don't let anyone, no matter how charming or manipulative, take you for a fool. Justice might take time, but it's worth fighting for. And in the end, you'll come out stronger, knowing you stood up when it mattered most.